Hello and welcome to Restoring Our American Republic. I'm Chuck Benoit with The Nature of Things, where we are realigning God, government, and natural law so that we might, restore our American Republic. Please post your comments to be part of the narrative. And most of us know that the Bill of Rights encompasses the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, and we typically get into our five First Amendment rights, but we kind of lose track of the other nine. Well, Collier County is trying to elevate the need to protect all 10 of our amendments known as the Bill of Rights. And with us this morning is Collier County Commissioner Chris Hall. Chris, welcome to the broadcast this morning.
Good morning, Chuck. Thanks for having me. This is a topic that I love to talk about.
Well, great. Before we get too far into it, let's welcome Mike Levine. Good morning, Mike.
Morning, gentlemen. Pleasure to be with you guys today.
Super. Well, I wouldn't mind just kind of getting into it. Collier County is kind of at the tip of the spear in something called the Bill of Rights Sanctuary Ordinance. Could you tell us a little bit about what that is, Chris?
Sure, be glad to. When COVID came and all of these rights were trampled on by big government, I got elected on no mandates and common sense. And as soon as I got elected, I wanted to bring this forth because it's not that the Bill of Rights don't exist, but I wanted to give our local sheriff an ordinance to actually give him some teeth to uphold the law, not just from a federal standpoint, like our founding fathers gave us, but from a local standpoint as well. So I came up with this Bill of Rights sanctuary ordinance, and I use sanctuary in the, just kind of like a little stick in the face to the progressives who were using sanctuary cities. I wanted to make sure that our Bill of Rights were protected 100% in Collier County. And not only did we pass it unanimously, but it was obvious it was the people's choice for us to do something like this. And we had some opposition. People were concerned about us opening up the county to lawsuits, and everybody was gonna to sue the county for this, sue the county for that. But we've passed it a year and a half ago, and we haven't seen the first lawsuit yet. But my pitch was, and the whole purpose of bringing this forth was, I told the people, I said, nothing changes unless something changes. The sheriff takes an oath to protect the Constitution, and he's doing that. But, lo and behold, if we had a rogue governor in Florida, or if we had, an administration like the last administration who wanted to continually trample our rights, we wanted to pass a law in Collier County and give our sheriff the teeth to say, hey, in Collier County, the Bill of Rights is the gospel. No one will ever trample your rights. And the 10th Amendment says it has the supremacy clause. And the federal government is the supreme law of the land as long as what they do is in pursuance of the Constitution. Anything that they do that's not in pursuance of that Constitution, we have the local authority to say, not in Collier County, you're not welcome here, and we will arrest you if you come to try to do something that's against our Bill of Rights.
That's kind of along the lines of the doctrine of the lesser magistrates. Do you kind of have that as your backdrop? Are you familiar with that doctrine? The idea that elected officials have to understand that our inalienable rights have to be defended even at the local level, as if it's come against at a higher level.
I didn't know what the term lesser magistrates was, but I just knew that my job as an elected official was to protect the liberty and the rights of the people that elected me. And when COVID came and I saw how our rights were trampled on, not only how our rights were trampled on, but how the people caved. The people, they just assumed that the federal government had these rights to do this, and agencies that weren't even elected had rights to do this. And that's not the case. The people are the dog, and they wag the tail. And the way that it's been and the way culture has evolved in America is Government is the dog and they wag the people. And that's not the way that it is. And it's not the way that it's going to be in Collier County.
That's very interesting. Mind if I have a comment here, Chuck?
Sure.
Yeah, so you're familiar, right? I mean, the federal government was setting up law enforcement offices in Florida to go after January 6ers. Is that right, Chris?
That's correct.
Yeah. So again, this is another example of the federal government, in my opinion, violating the Bill of Rights for those January 6 people who were arrested. And then the federal government came right into the state of Florida and was setting up law enforcement offices here in Florida. And of course, the sheriff, most of the sheriffs went along with it. I didn't see any local sheriffs standing against the federal government when they were setting up law enforcement offices here in Florida to violate the rights of Florida citizens who happened to be at the January 6th protest, Chris.
It's so true. It's the fourth and fifth amendment. The due process of law was violated in a big way in that season. And it was people, the politicization of the judicial system and the law enforcement. It's one of the reasons why these kind of ordinances are super important at the local level.
Sure. So just to be clear, you have Sheriff Mack and this guy, Bill Mitchell here in Florida, who are running this Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officer Associations. Were you collaborating with them as you put this thing forward?
I did not collaborate with them while we were putting it together, but after I got it put together and after we passed it, Bill asked me to come speak to the organization. I've been on the phone with Sheriff Mack a lot. I was just on the phone with him the other day after our Alex Newman podcast. He wanted me to do another one, and I just couldn't make it. But we have a rain check on that. But no, I wish that this ordinance was in every county in America.
Okay. Well, as Chuck was alluding to, we've got a gentleman here in Lake County he's already had consultations with all 5 of our commissioners, and he's talked to our sheriff, Peyton Grinnell, and Sheriff Grinnell has indicated that he's a supporter, and he said that he would actually go to the county commission meeting when the ordinance is on the agenda. So we're hopeful, but Rick's been working on this for quite a while. Bill Mitchell's been to Lake County on several occasions. So, Rick is an amazing guy, great guy. He gets a lot of stuff done through the Board of County Commissioners. And for some reason, getting this on the agenda has taken a little longer, but we really haven't. I talked to Rick quite a bit, and so does Chuck. And I don't know of any opposition to this from the county commission standpoint. So we're looking forward to getting that on the agenda here and having the sheriff come over and speak positively to it so that we'll join you guys down in Collier on the passage of that ordinance, Chuck.
Yeah, so it starts out, the ordinance starts out with an initiative to protect citizens of a stated county against unconstitutional federal, state, and local government overreach. And then it kind of goes on and says, we the people of that said county hereby petition our county commission to establish that county as a Bill of Rights sanctuary county. And then it continues and says, we're committed to having our local law enforcement be empowered to uphold their constitutional duty and acts as a lesser magistrate to thwart any effort of federal, state, or foreign or global entities to infringe on the rights given us by God and upheld by the Constitution of the United States. And of course, then it goes on with this. This is not just a group of people saying that they would like to have a particular day as somebody, some sort of a special day. This is legal stuff. This is not just what's the word I'm looking for? Some sort of a commemorative statement. This has got law behind it, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. So, how did things get started? I mean, you kind of seemed like you were the initiator, but what was kind of the first step? I've seen this information called the difference between a fast track or a long game on this, and I was just wondering Sounds like you might have been on a fast track.
Well, we were on a fast track because I was pretty passionate about it, and the way that it's just started with original conversation between me and a and Christina Hoyser. She's an attorney here. She's actually our state committee woman, and in that conversation, she agreed to help me come up. I didn't want to do a resolution. I didn't want to just say, hey, as commissioners, we're resolved to protect the Bill of Rights here for you people in Collier County. I wanted a law. I wanted an ordinance. And the way that the ordinance came about was with the sheriff's help, with his attorney, with our attorneys. And it basically just kind of grew organically. And it was common sense. I kept going back to the intentions of the founding fathers and the experience that we had through COVID and what I never wanted to experience again. It made me so dang mad. I ran for office. I came to Naples to live happily ever after. And when I saw the rights being trampled on and the people just caving to those rights, I got mad and I ran for office. And, I was elected overwhelmingly just on those principles. So I knew I had the people behind me and I had campaign promises. So this was a really easy one for me to bring forward because of the passion that I had for it. Not only did we do a Bill of Rights ordinance, we also did a medical freedom Bill of Rights. So in Collier County, no one will ever tell you that you can't work here. If you don't have a shot, you can't walk into our business with this or that. You have the same freedoms medically to make choices that are best for you as we do granted from the forefathers with our first 10 amendments.
So Dr. Joseph Samson is down in your area, right? Running that bioweapons resolution. Is that correct?
We have a lot of help down here. We have Simone Gold,
Yeah.
one of the frontline doctors. She's here.
Yeah.
Scott Kiley. Scott Kiley is just a citizen who's big time into that. And
Yeah. We passed the bioweapon resolution here in Lake County through the Republican Executive Committee before the Executive Committee was banned from doing resolutions, right?
good for you.
Yeah, we've done we've been very active in running resolutions through the Republican Executive Committee since I was the chairman back in 2012 through 2016. And I thought it was my job to communicate with the Republican Party of Florida and tell the Republican Party of Florida what Lake County Republicans think. And I got pushed back on it immediately out of the box in 2012, and that argument hasn't the Republican Party of Florida believes it's concluded, but Lake County Republicans don't necessarily think so. So that's kind of the struggle that we're going through here now, without getting too deep into the Republican Party of Florida issues at the moment. But I'm curious, Chris, the overall consensus from our county commission is that the constitutional officers were elected by the public, so it's their job just to give them whatever money they ask for. What are your thoughts on that? What is the role of the Board of County Commissioners in overseeing the budgets and of the constitutional officers in Collier County?
That's a great question. And it seems like that the constitutionals always get what they want. I know our sheriff does. We're going to support him in every way that we can. But at the same time, we have conversations with each of them. And my conversations with them are, look, I was elected on creating smaller government. And you could obviously spend, you could be really creative in ways that you could spend and increase your budget year after year after year. But I want you to be looking at the ways to run more efficiently, run smarter, not harder, and do things better instead of just throwing money at you. And with that conversation, it's really resonated. I mean, I can't speak for other constitutionals in other counties, but I can pretty much brag on ours. They really do want to do things right, and they want to do what the people want them to do. And they understand that the people that elected them want smaller government. And so, yes, they have budgetary concerns and they have increases and that they need, but we come and we talk about it. And in Collier County, as soon as I was elected, I'm just going to segue into this real quick and I'll just mention it. For the first time in 13 years, we did not raise taxes, ad valorem taxes. And I fought till 1:30 in the morning on a night that we had a budget hearing, and was able to convince the other commissioners to not raise taxes or not go millage neutral, because if you go millage neutral and you get a raise in valuation, your taxes go up. So we rolled our rates back for the last 2 years and collected the same amount of tax. And I made them all commit that we would do the hard work and we would look and make the hard decisions coming up. And we hired a company called Resource X from Tyler Technologies. And this is the beginning of the third year. And the first 2 years, we kind of got into revenue neutral stuff and how we can raise revenue. But this year coming up, next month, we're really going to get into the hard decisions and how we can look at our government, shrink it down, operate smarter. We were Doge before Doge was cool. And I'm excited about that. I don't know what the outcome is going to be next month, but I know I'm going to fight hard for the taxpayers to shrink our government. And our constitutionals, they understand that rationale. And I'm kind of proud of them for engaging it. Even the sheriff was, he'll come and ask for some money, but he understands, what the people want. And I really do appreciate that about them.
Well, that's great to be in a county where the constitutional officers respect taxpayers. I don't feel the same way about what's going on here in Lake County. I think that we experienced some abuse from not, you don't want to throw them all but it pretty universally. These guys, and we've had some really interesting interludes between our constitutional officers. The tax collector, David Jordan, took his brother down to the supervisor of elections office at 11:45 in the afternoon on the day of when qualifying ended, and circumvented the property appraiser, Carrie Baker, from, being on the ballot as a Republican. You know what I mean? It was just a really nasty little interchange. And now, they're, like, for example, I believe the now we have two constitutional officers who are brothers, and Mark Jordan is the property appraiser now, after he finagled or bamboozled Carrie Baker into not being an effective candidate. Carrie Baker he termed out of the Florida House and the Florida Senate. His father was a state representative, so it's not like he's not knowledgeable about the antics of politics. But Mark Jordan found a way to, bamboozle him out of his slot, and now he's asking for a 28% increase to his budget. And his brother, Mark Jordan, is the same thing. They use their offices to hire their friends and family, and they direct money out of their offices to their friends and family. So it's quite an abuse, in my opinion, here in Lake County. So I'll leave it at that. I'm just happy for you that you have a set of constitutional officers in Collier who are respectful of taxpayer money, because that's not what's going on here in Lake County, in my opinion. But,
Well, I hate.
Yeah.
I hate that it's that way for you. You know what?
Yeah.
The power of the purse resides with the commissioners. And if there was a rogue constitutional, I would pitch hard to just say, no, we're not going to fund your budget. You're going to operate just like you did last year. And they can do that. And then.
Yeah, I get it. Mm-hmm. So my point to you would be, I'm just going to share with you, Chris, I grew up in the hotel business, and, I'd be running a 250 room Holiday Inn somewhere, and my bosses would go over my operating statements invoice by invoice, literally invoice by invoice. I was 25 years old, running a little Holiday Inn somewhere. And we would literally stack the general ledger on my desk, and my bosses, they were so smart, man. These guys studied their numbers like no one else. These are the toughest business people in the world. I still believe that today, that the guys that I worked for when I was a kid are the strongest business people in the world. And I had to literally explain one time How come I had an invoice for $65 for forks and spoons for my restaurant in a $10 million budget? You know what I mean? That's how tough they were. And I don't understand, it's really frustrating for people like me, business people, to see the kind of broad brush attitude that elected officials have over taxpayer money, because I personally believe that those budgets should be managed line by line. And I believe that the constitutional officers should go out of their way to demonstrate and to celebrate their stewardship over the taxpayers' money. If I was a constitutional officer, I would go out of my way to show people that I was a good steward of their money and they could trust me financially. And I would have people in my organization. So that's kind of another question mark that I have in my mind. In Collier County, there are people, I have to assume that there's people inside those constitutional offices who that's their sole responsibility, is to effectively manage the people's money. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes, sir. You're spot on with that.
Yeah.
And
So my next question for you would be, I'm just curious, there's a lot of banter around the state right now about local spending. And I'm just curious, you obviously study the budget, particularly of your county commission. So where are the costs, what are legitimate cost increases that the cities and counties are going through right now? What are you facing that is driving the cost of government?
it's a myriad of things. It's a great question. I'll just give you an example of two things. One, our sheriff has asked for an increase, not because, I know that you're asking about our general budget, but one of the things that are driving it is we have an infrastructure here that has been neglected for years. They've just kicked it down. They've just kicked the can down the road and kicked the can down the road. And now we're facing seriously a $300 million stormwater infrastructure deficit. We're facing an $80 million radio upgrade for our first responders and our sheriffs and our EMS. And in doing that kind of stuff, we have the choice. We could say, hey, we're just gonna raise taxes and cover that money, or we're gonna borrow it and pay it back over 30 years. Or we have another choice that we could take a referendum to the taxpayers and say, hey, we're going to raise the sales tax 1%. And as soon as we raise this money, it's strictly going to go for this project. And excuse me, it's strictly going to go for this project. And when we raise that much money, we're going to sunset it. We're going to go back to the normal sales tax rate. So those are just some of the things that come up. Hurricanes didn't help us at all down here. We used all of our reserves, and thank goodness we've recovered from that. But we had to rob from other capital projects to do the immediate things. So those are just some of the things. The sheriff has asked for body armor cameras, and that was a pretty good expenditure. And these days and times, we want our sheriffs and our deputies having those body armor cameras. That way, it eliminates anything that could go afoul.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So
You're
those
right.
are just
So,
little things.
Right. And, that just kind of leads us into another thing that we talked about before getting on camera here. And that is the usurpation of the state of Florida over cities and counties' authority over land use decisions. So, for example, I was with our sheriff, Peyton Grinnell, last year, and I just asked him, I said, isn't it, because I knew statistically from other things that I had read that, when you put these government-assisted, government-subsidized, high-density, multifamily apartment complexes into our communities, those developments require a higher level of law enforcement and exposes our law enforcement officer to a lot more dangerous crime. Can you agree with that?
Oh, that's just the obvious. Yes, no doubt about it.
So why would we, as a state, knowingly and intentionally put our law enforcement officers in front of thugs bullets, Chris. And it's just the way I see it. I see that the whole drive in the state of Florida to make the whole state of Florida one big high density, ugly, um, chaotic, disorderly environment. Why would the state of Florida go along with that, Chris?
Well, because the leadership required it, and everybody just followed along like little blind puppy dogs. But you know, when it comes to usurping local authority, I really do buck that, and I resent it. I love the fact that, just take Live Local for an example. Live Local is a noble cause. We want to provide homes for our workforce, our nurses, our teachers, our firemen, our deputies. We want those people to have a place to live and can afford to live there so that they can work here. What we don't want is creating subsidized housing that where the thugs come in. They don't work, they got, there's no intention, and their only jobs really are unlawful. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So,
Well, let me just disagree with you a little bit, Chris. And yes, let's have Chuck come in. Thank you, Chuck. Sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no problem, no problem. We're pretty much winding down here, and we've talked about out of control government, and we've also kind of been talking about this sanctuary county ordinance, which is trying to make sure that at least our local officials are protecting us from out of control government decisions. So what can the average citizen do to maybe move this sanctuary county ordinance ahead? There was a short, a fast track and a long game, but what about someone who's just starting, who's just hearing this idea? What would be some of the first things they would do to begin to look at sanctuary county ordinance?
Good question. First of all, have a conversation amongst your commissioners. Have a conversation with your law enforcement, your sheriff. Make sure that they're on board. And then just reach out to us. We'll send you a copy of the resolution. All the creative work is done. And we'll send it to you, and you can present it as an ordinance to your commissioners, and they can pass it, and boom, you're done.
Okay, sounds pretty easy. I would think possibly it would be a good amount of time between starting to talk to people and getting it done. But what you're saying is that on your website, what was it, chrishallnaples.com, they can get a copy of that?
If they reach out to me on that website, I can get them a copy of the resolution very
Okay.
easily.
That sounds good. That sounds really good. So, Mike, you were getting ready to say something?
How much time do we have, Chuck?
Well, we're pretty much down to our last 2 minutes.
Again, Chris, I'm a real estate broker. I've been involved with the Florida Realtors for 30 years. I served on their board for a long time. And I'm saying to you, well, I appreciate the graciousness that you gave to the Live Local Act, but I want to just make sure that I want you to just listen to what I have to say, because I'm saying to you, the realtors talk about affordable housing every every year. They have a midwinter business meetings in January and another convention, a statewide convention in August, and we talk about affordable housing in every single meeting that we have. Yet, the entire supply chain in the housing business supports increasing housing values. So I was with the president, a guy that I know fairly well, a week or so ago, and I was at a broker forum with a couple of hundred brokers in the room, and I just said, guys, as long as the supply chain rewards escalating housing values, then affordable housing is not achievable. So, I'll be honest, Chris, for me, I believe that the government shouldn't subsidize anything. So, you come out with the, Hometown Heroes program. It started out being just for first responders, right? And, I believe if you want to help first responders, give them a raise, I mean, every first responder doesn't even benefit from the program. So that's just gaslighting. And subsidizing housing purchases, particularly in an undersupplied market, which is where we were when probably arguably still are, but when Live Local was passed in 2023, the housing market was severely undersupplied, and we were subsidizing housing purchases in an undersupplied market, exacerbating overpriced housing, pricing people out of housing, creating foreclosures, bankruptcy, homelessness, which we saw in the Great Recession of 2008, let's just say. So I looked at the whole Live Local Act. I tore it apart and shredded it. And I ran for a Florida House seat in 24. And I was really correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck, but I think I was probably a lone voice in Florida speaking against Live Local, right? And of course, the powers that be piled on and made sure I didn't get elected, right? The Realtor organization, they've known me for 30 years, right? They know who I am. I challenge them in their meetings all the time. So, of course, my friends at the Realtor Association didn't want me elected, right? Because I'm not going to allow them to talk out of both sides of their mouth and say that they're concerned about affordable housing while they're aggressively driving housing values through every component in the supply chain. So I just need you, Chris, as a county commissioner who talks to a lot of people and actually implements law on housing, to understand that affordable housing is a joke. Nobody who has the ability to do anything about it actually cares about affordable housing, and subsidizing it makes the problem worse, Chris.
I couldn't agree more. We don't subsidize squat. I'll wrap it up right here, Chuck.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about affordable housing is if a developer comes and wants to rezone and build 100 units, 40 of them have to be for workforce housing. They have to have some public benefit involved. Otherwise, we're just winding up with high density, more traffic, more a load on our streets, a load on our law enforcement. There has to be a public benefit for anything that we approve on the board, in my opinion.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Chris Hall. And for those of you who continue to tune in, thank you again for tuning to our twice weekly live stream. Please follow us on Facebook at Restoring Our American Republic, or check us out on YouTube at Restoring Our American Republic -ROAR. Like and share the program, please. And remember, if you're unwilling to govern yourself, you will be governed by tyrants. See you next time. And meanwhile, God bless you. God bless President Donald J. Trump. And God bless America.
God bless America.